Hello there, welcome back to a forecast discussion. As we right now, we're expected a multi-day serial outbreak seems to be getting more apparent, really, and we have a slight risk on day 3. On Tuesday, 15% from Central Texas going into Oklahoma, and then Kansas and Missouri, with a marginal risk of 5% from Texas all the way going into Iowa and Illinois. Looking at day 4, we have a 30% chance of where much of Mississippi going to Alabama, northeastern Louisiana, and southeastern Arkansas, and then 50% on Thursday from eastern North Carolina, eastern Virginia going to Maryland, southern New Jersey, all of Delaware, and as well as southeastern Pennsylvania. So, let's take a look at how moisture return has been looking so far, and right now we're seeing along the coast around some dew points in the low 60s, with some dew points just off the coast there and that are right now in the mid 50s, as well as going into along the coast of Louisiana. We're seeing some dew points in the low to mid 60s, and further inland into the mid to upper 50s. Off the coast into the Gulf of Mexico, we're seeing some dew points in the low to mid 60s. So we'll continue to really watch that. Soundings are coming out in probably like an hour. I might go for them if I wait till then, but let's take a look at the 18Z NAM first, and see, looking at the overall pattern right now, we see some troughing just off the western coast, ridging over the west mainland rest, and then over the east we have some troughing, and troughing expected to eject tomorrow night, and then going to Tuesday around 0Z, we have a positive tilted trough. Not really favorable, really, for really strong moisture return. This is not really one of those strong neutrally or negatively tilted, which usually so we'll be seeing probably a surface low in the 980s, low 990s, upper 980s, and then overnight going to Wednesday, that trough is going to shear out. We'll be seeing a much larger warm section compared to what we seen a few days ago, and then the trough, as it shears out, it jerks off to the north and east. So it's one of those setups I think could be pretty potent on Wednesday, and depending really on storm mode, you can take a look at 500 millibar flow. Taking a look at directional shear right now. Still meridianal, but for the north it's going to be mostly linear mode. For the south, maybe if we can see a time of a slight trend to more westerly, then there'll be probably some issues. But yeah. Let's take a look at 50 millibars. Fast forward it to around 0Z on Wednesday. Time of a low-level jet. Around 50 to 60 knot low-level jet, and that's gonna strengthen. Blossom overnight. We'll be seeing probably like a 60-70 knot low-level jet around 6Z. Then overnight 70 knot. It's looks pretty potent. And 21Z we're seeing a really potent low-level jet. So we're seeing potentially a 80, 70, maybe even 90 knot low-level jet. This is quite potent to say the least, and given strong directional shear, and don't think I think there's gonna be quite a significant tornado threat really assuming that a linear mode doesn't wash out the warm sector really, which depending on how big this warm sector is, it should be pretty big as we have as this trough shears out. It's a pretty good timing as well to get. Unlike last time, the last trough was sheared out a bit late, so instead of seeing really a larger warm sector, we saw a timing of a smaller one, just because of timing of it shearing out. Since the timing seems to be pretty much on par, that's time it raises some eyebrows for a potential significant severe weather event, including potential for many prefrontal confluence lines that will see some so we'll be seeing some prefrontal discrete supercells. So anyways, take a look at 21Z tomorrow. Moisture dew points are in the low 60s with low 60s, upper 50s, and I don't think moisture is really going to get that done for tomorrow. And really, we'll be seeing a pretty sizable cap as well. This is near the surface low around 21Z. I think storm initiation won't even be at this point, just because that sizable cap you can still see around just under between 850 and 700 millibars. And take a look at after. We'll take a few soundings near the surface low. I think this is really the main potential for severe weather. All hazards, damaging winds, large hail. And we still have a cap around 0Z. I think that's going to continue to erode. And we'll take a look at another sounding by 8Z, or 3Z I mean, and still pretty sizable cap, strong, pretty deep mid-level lapse rates. So we'll take another one kind of further out. We'll take a few soundings near the surface low. This is the first one. Strong inversion. And this one tiny bit of a timing not as bad, but I still think this is pretty much more of a elevate storm mode. And this one, so I don't see much really happening tomorrow. Maybe something near the surface low, but I doubt anything really tornadic after. So, and then once we get to Wednesday, pretty strong, and dew points are well into the 60s. I think that's today where things are going to be a bit big. You can definitely see big warm sector, so it's definitely quite so this sounding is along the Alabama Mississippi border around 21Z. I think steep level lapse rates, I think mid-level lapse rates are a tiny of an issue. We can go take a look at that actually real quick. I think low level lapse rates will be pretty good. You can definitely see pretty steep, relatively steep low-level lapse rates to plume around 21Z mid-level lapse rates. So take a look at that. Not looking too good. You can see definitely not too steep at all. Maybe up to 7 degrees Celsius per kilometer at most. So probably will be less than that. Probably will be closer to 6 degrees Celsius per kilometer. So that's definitely not what you really want to see. I think updrafts they're going to struggle at first, but if there's a supercell that can get going, won't get run over by potential squall line, I think there'll be some issues potentially for some long track tornadoes, significant tornadoes. So yeah. Anyways, let's take a look at the GFS's solution. And also we'll take a look at the Euros just to have models to really compare it to. So trough ejects tomorrow night, and then the four corner 0Z. Time it more positively tilted, weaker flow around in the plains, and so ejects, shears out, and I think it's showing a time at more westerlies compared to the NAM. It's a time bit more southwester, more to the southwest compared to the NAM. And take a look at the GFS. Look, 50 to 60, 70 near 70 knot low jet blossoms overnight, widespread. You see that 50 to 60 knot low jet stretching all the way from Wisconsin all the way down south into the Gulf. Quite an expansive little jet. And then throughout the day tomorrow, on Wednesday, 70 knot little jet, and then night as it shears off, ejects off to the northeast, and then that's where we'll be probably seeing a morning threat in Thursday. Let me go and pivotal real quick, and we can take a look at both those from the euro, and we'll see actually. So trough ejects into California tomorrow, and then let's take a look at 60. Pretty positively tilted trough as well. Again, that's, I think if it's more neutrally tilted, I think we'd be seeing moisture return wouldn't be totally delayed all the way into the daytime, all the way into the nighttime until 10, or maybe later until storm initiation, at least further south. And then trough shears out. Let's take a look at around 0Z. Again, also southwesterly. So, and as it heads off to the northeast, shears out, and yeah, basically it's pretty similar. And we'll actually take a look at the surface low between all three of them, 3 of the models, and then we'll take a look at the short range ensemble forecast, and we'll close it off after that. Let's take a look at 0Z. We have pretty strong 45 to 50 knot little jet blossoms. Shortly after midnight, around 60, we're seeing pretty strong 70 knot little jet over Texas, 45 plus knots compass from all the way from Marquette going further south into the Gulf of Mexico. So we'll be seeing some pretty strong warm air advection. And then throughout the day, let's take a look at 18Z. Really strong global jet, 70 knots, 75 knots. And then take a look at 0Z, 80 knot level jet. That's a pretty intense level jet, to say the least, and you can assume that there's, given these this level due south, we're seeing some really large photographs, storm relatively, definitely in higher ends really, and whether or not, if we get the correct thermos really, if we get the right thermos really to sustain updrafts and to not really, then there will be some issues. Let's take a look at surface low now. I'm pretty sure we'll be seeing somewhere in like the 980s, 990s, 980s. So take a look at 986 millibars around Wednesday night from the euro, sticking in with the 980s, tracks into Iowa and southern Wisconsin. And so a pretty deep surface low 980 millibars, and looking at 0Z. So we have a surface low over central Illinois at 986. This is quite a deep surface low, so it makes sense that we're seeing a pretty strong surface low around the 980s. I think DRO's solution mid 980s, upper 980s. I think that seems pretty realistic on par. And basically same story. Tiny bit deeper though. Take a look at 0Z. And you can see mid 980s tracks into Iowa 984. The GFS is a tiny bit more. It's a tiny bit more of a progressive solution. And while we wait for this to load, and you can see 990 millibar low. Even strength is even further into the mid 970s. But 983 millibars, quite as seems like after 0Z, the GFS is a time at going more of a northerly track. And then lastly, let's take a look at the RAM. And then we can look at this, with the short range on ensemble forecast. We'll first take a look at surface low. See the differences between them, but fast forward it to then 97 millibar low, surface low over North Kansas. Then once we get to 12Z, actually we have okay, cool. So anyways, let's fast forward it to 0Z, so hour 54. So over central Kansas, we have a 988 millibar low, surface low. I think we've probably seen some convection around there. And so that's the highest possibility if there's any surface-based convection, really. And let's just, and we're right around 60, still meandering over northern Kansas, and once we get to around 15Z over southern Kansas, over southern Missouri, we have a 989 millibar low. Let's fast forward it to around 21Z, 984 millibar surface low over inland over the Mississippi River. Let's take it over to 0Z, 982 over northern Illinois, and then assume it continues to deepen over southern Wisconsin, and then upper 970s. So there's that. 21Z short range ensemble forecast is running right now, so I think we'll have to wait till 15Z to sell for that. And we'll take a look at individual members and see possible scenarios. Let's take it to round 0Z on Wednesday first of all. And while we wait for that to load, and right, two possible places it seems. One over southern South Dakota near the South Dakota-Nebraska border, and then another one I think it's a bit more realistic, is over Kansas and Nebraska. It's where the majority of the members are showing. I think we'll be seeing probably a low in the upper 980s. And then once we get to around, let's go to 12Z. Surface low, time had some disagreement. Some of them are placing a surface low in the low 990s over north with the Kansas Oklahoma border, while others time it more stronger solutions, sort of over Iowa, upper 90s. But the mean right now showing Kansas, central Kansas, still around 12Z and over northeastern Kansas. Let's go to 18Z and time it with some more disagreement. And surface lows, a few. Remember, they're showing one over northern Oklahoma, and another one a lot in between, and then majority of them are going into Iowa, but then going to 0Z. I think this is where really the pretty general consensus right now that we'll be seeing a low probably in the mid 980s over the Illinois and Iowa border. So placement of this low could be a bit important to see how far north moisture will be affecting on Wednesday. So we're gonna go over to let's go over here, and then take a look at 500 millibars real quick. And okay, so right now we see that trough, closed trough right there, ejecting into California. Then the Four Corners on Tuesday. Let's stop that before we get too far ahead of ourselves. We see again positively tilted trough as expected. Decent amount of defluence aloft, but I think again the sizable cap. I don't think it'll be really ever. There'll be some convection. There will be probably some convection near the surface. So the further south, there will be at 6C, and then strong flow or around the base of the trough. Not too much on the backside. Could be a time of an issue. And then once we get there, 12Z begins to shear out. And fast forward to 0Z. Time at southwesterly, well, that's really what I've been seeing really from the GFS, the Euro, and now the SREF, showing more of a southwesterly 500 millibar flow. So I think we're showing quite a strong level jet swell. And take a look at that. Let's take a look at around 0Z, around 40 to 45 knot to 50 knot level jet, and that strengthened blossoms really to 60 knot level jet and mid 60s, and that is really powering throughout the day. Mid 60s, that's gonna be pretty primed for some large curvature in the photographs and the low levels, increasing that storm relative velocity, of course. So and then we see a 70 knot low level jet by 0Z, and after strengthens to over 70 knots as a low level jet axis lifts off to the north and east. Let's go through the dew points. So right now, moisture, take a look at 0Z on Tuesday. 60s reaching up into Oklahoma and Arkansas, but mid 60s are holding tight it back into southern Texas and Louisiana. I think that's going to be lifted at time as we do have that strong little jet, and you can definitely see about 0Z on Thursday. You can see dew points are into the mid 60s into central Mississippi, and then with some 60s reaching up into Tennessee and western or eastern Arkansas. So I think this is gonna be quite a potent day, to say the least. I think concerns really at mid-level lapse rates, thermals in general. I think that's a time of the biggest question mark. But if everything goes right, then that things can go bad. But let's take a look at well, we can take a short see how instability is doing. So around 750 joules per kilogram seems to be the mean. So I think really instability it's gonna be pretty weak, to say at least, around a few 500 to 750 joules per kilogram. And then throughout the day, instability around 700 to maybe even near 1,000 joules per kilogram, just out behind where the main QLCS. That's near the dry line. I think near the dry line, we'll be seeing some thunderstorms there. Time is some pretty straight hood wraps, although time is some veering in the lowest kilometer. Could support maybe an isolated tornado threat, but I think it's gonna be mostly a significant hail threat. But out ahead of that scroll line, some instability around 500 joules per kilogram or more. Out ahead of it, I think really the evolution of this QLCS is really going to be key, as it's going to really decide whether or not will the warm sector get washed out. That's, I think, for the north as well. How far south this QLCS is going to extend to, that's another question mark, as further north into the warm sector, there will be probably near meridional flow, 500 millibar flow, there will be nearly upscale growth, and there will be a QLCS sustaining from last night anyways into the day. Further south, if there could be, I think there's a possibility of it, but I wouldn't really don't think it'd shun the tornadoes threat that much, due to I think there'll be a lot of QLCS tornadoes as well, given the strong little hood rafts, very large hood rafts, and so this favorable kinematics. And so yeah, I think there's quite a lot to think about, but Wednesday could be really potent, but it could also not be potent at the same time. But to recap, we have slight risk over Texas going into Kansas and Missouri, as well as Oklahoma, 15% probabilistic. Day 4, we have a 30% from much of Mississippi going into Alabama, northeastern Louisiana, and southeastern Arkansas, and then a 50% from eastern North Carolina into eastern Virginia, Maryland, Delaware, southern New Jersey, and southeastern Pennsylvania. So really, apart from that, comment down below if you have any really suggestions to make these any better. Like to hear it, but apart from that, that's really it, and goodbye.